What's up, everybody? And welcome to another edition of High Mythology.
Woo!
We are back.
Coming back.
The show where we get higher than the Baghdad sun and tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore.
That is right.
Yeah, it's been a little break for us. We took a little bit of time off. Did some personal stuff, some adult stuff, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're back on the train. Kim's smoking again.
Woo!
And we are gonna tell you guys
great.
some cool stories.
I love life.
Yeah. Tonight we will be bringing you our most likely first in a series of question mark number of the voyages of Sinbad.
Woo! I just did them
Sinbad
all.
the Sailor.
I finally promised. You know what? I finally came through.
Yeah, we finally came through. Still waiting on that Monkey King, though, Dusty. Still waiting on that Monkey King.
Yeah.
I hear you, fans.
I know. I thought about just
Monkey
finishing
King's
it for
coming.
you.
It's coming. It's on its way. It's coming.
All right, if you say so.
So yeah, I guess without further ado, why don't you go ahead and take it away there, Kimbo?
All right, so it starts out with Voyage 1.
Voyage 1.
The beginning.
The beginning.
So this is all pretty much summed up, so don't judge me.
Yeah, we're not doing the full
The actual
book.
story is like
it's a huge book. It's a good story. I suggest, if you dig this episode and you haven't read Sinbad, read it. And if you've read Sinbad, I hope you dig this episode.
Yeah. Still late. Okay, so in the times of the Caliph Harun al-Rashid.
Easy.
Pretty much the king of those times.
The king of those times. The Caliph.
There lived in Baghdad a poor porter named Sinbad, who, on a very hot day, was sent to carry a heavy load from one end of the city to the other. Before he had accomplished half the distance, he was so tired that, finding himself in a quiet street where the pavement was sprinkled with rose water and a cool breeze was blowing.
It sprinkles pavement with rose water.
Well, apparently in this household, on the street. Yeah. Just this street.
It's just what we do. We wash that's when you know, I guess that's when you know you're balling, when you wash your fucking pavement with rose water.
You get banged, dude. You know you're set for that.
We don't even use normal water coming out of our water hose. It's all rose water coming out of that tap.
He set his burden upon the ground and sat down to rest in the shade of the grand house. Very soon he decided that he could not have chosen a pleasanter place. A delicious perfume of aloe woods and pastilles came from the open windows and mingled with the scent of the rose water, which steamed up from the hot pavement.
Ooh, steamy.
Within the palace, he heard some music, as of many instruments cunningly played, and the melodious warbles of nightingales.
Doth that be Freebird?
And other birds by this. The appetizing smell and many dainties dishes of which he had presently become aware, he judged that feasting and merrying making were going on.
From the smell of all the food, from the smell of barbecue and all that Freebird blasting out of the window, I can tell there's a party going on there.
He wondered who lived in this magnificent house, which he had never seen before, the street in which it stood being one of which he seldomly had the occasion to pass. To satisfy his curiosity, he went up to some splendidly dressed servants who stood at the door and asked one of them the name of the master of the mansion. The manservant says,
"What? Do you live here in Baghdad and not know the noble Sinbad lives here? He's the sailor who has traveled every sea upon which the sun shines." What?
The porter, who had often heard people speak of the immense wealth of Sinbad, he could not help but feeling envious of one whose lot seemed to be happy as his own was miserable. Casting his eyes up to the sky, he exclaimed out loud,
"Consider mighty creator of all things, the differences between Sinbad's life and mine. Every day I suffer 1,000 hardships and misfortunes, and I have worked hard to get even enough bad barley bread to keep myself and my family alive. Bad barley bread. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Delish.
Delish. Yeah.
But it's bad.
But it's bad. While the lucky Sinbad spends money right and left, and sometimes straight down the middle, and lives upon the fat of the land, because the land is fatty. It's a fatty, fat land over here. What has he done that you should give him this pleasant life? What have I done to deserve such a hard fate? Woe is me.
What have you done, bitch?
Whoa. Yeah.
Me.
Oh, no.
That one's really for you.
Yeah. What have I done?
So saying, he stamped upon the ground, like one beside himself with misery and despair.
I don't,
Sorry, I just
I
stepped
don't
on
wanna. I'm not going anywhere. Sinbad the Pouter.
Just at this moment, a servant came out of palace and, taking him by the arm, said,
What? Come with me. The noble Sinbad, my master, wishes to speak with you.
Sinbad was not a little surprised at this summons and feared that his unguarded words might have drawn upon him the displeasure of Sinbad. So he tried to excuse himself upon the pretext that he could not leave the burden which had been entrusted to him in the street. However, the lackey promised.
I gotta lay here in this rose water. I would love to come in, but like this is kind of I booked a good hour of this, so I'm just gonna keep doing this.
However, the lackey promised him that it would be taken care of and urged him to obey the call so pressingly that at last the porter was obliged to yield. He followed the servant into a vast room where a great company was seated around this table covered with all sorts of delicacies.
All sorts of delicacies.
In the place of honor sat the tall, grave man whose long white beard gave him a venerable air. Beside his chair stood a crowd of attendants eager to minister to his wants. This was the famous Sinbad himself. Old man
Sinbad. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Yeah, the crowd goes wild. That's a real live studio audience, people.
We're still in COVID lockdown.
We're in a tiny little studio room.
The porter, more than ever alarmed at the sight of such a magnificence, started trembling and saluted the noble company. Sinbad, making a sign to him to approach, caused him to be seated at his right hand, and himself heaped choice morsels upon his plate, and poured out for him a draught of excellent wine, and presently, when the banquet drew to a close, spoke to him familiarly. Sorry.
I speak at you firmly, sir.
Asking his name and his occupation. Sinbad says,
My lord, I am called Sinbad, the overly dramatic.
Sinbad says, I am glad to see you here, and I will answer for the rest of the company that they are equally pleased. But I wish you to tell me what it is that you said just now in the street. For Sinbad, passing by the open window before the feast began, had heard his complaint and therefore had sent for him. At this question, Sinbad was covered with confusion and hanging down his head replied,
My lord, I must confess that I am overcome by weariness and ill humor. I didn't know that you were listening when I said all that bad shit about you. I uttered indiscreet words, which I pray you'll pardon me. Pardon me. Pardon me.
Sinbad replied, Oh, do not imagine that I am so unjust as to blame you. On the contrary, I understand your situation and can pity you. Only you appear to be mistaken about me, and I wish to set you right. You doubtless imagine that I have acquired all this wealth and luxury that you see me enjoy without difficulty or danger. But this is far indeed from being the case. I have only reached this happy state after having for years suffered every possible kind of toil and danger. Yes, my noble friends, he continued to address the company. I assure you that my adventures have been strange enough to deter even the most avaricious of men from seeking wealth by traversing the seas. Since you have, perhaps, heard but confused accounts of my 7 voyages and the dangers and wonders that I have met with the sea and land, I will now give you a full and true account of them, which I think you will be pleased to hear.
Oh ho ho!
Sorry.
It's time for some storytelling by the old Sinbad man.
As Sinbad was relating his adventures chiefly on the account of the porter, he ordered before beginning his tale that the burden which had been left in the street should be carried by some of his own servants to the place which Sinbad had set out to first, while he remained to listen to the story. The start. Sinbad. Voyage 1.
Voyage 1. Bum 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 bum.
Sinbad says, I had inherited considerable wealth from my parents, and being young and foolish, I at first squandered it recklessly upon every kind of pleasure. But presently, finding that the riches speedily take flight, I managed as badly as I had managed mine. And remembering also that the old and poor is misery indeed, I began to reflect upon myself, of how I could make the best of what still remained of me. I sold all my household goods by public auction, and joined a company of merchants who traded by sea, embarking with them at Balsora on a ship which we had fitted out between us. We set sail and took course towards the East Indies by the Persian Gulf, having the coast of Persia upon our left hand, and upon our right shores the Arabia Felix. I was at first much troubled by the uneasy motion of the vessel, but speedily recovered my health, and since that hour have been no more plagued by seasickness.
I'm getting a real what was that movie? Interview with a Vampire vibe off it. It was a million years ago when this all started on a voyage.
From time to time we landed at various islands, where we sold or exchanged our merchandise, and one day, when the wind dropped suddenly, we found ourselves becalmed close to a small island like a green meadow, which only rose slightly above the surface of the water. Our sails were furled, and the captain and the captain gave permission to all who wished to land for a while to amuse themselves.
Amuse yourself, boys.
I was among the number. But after strolling about for some time, we lighted a fire and sat down to enjoy the repast.
Just imagine a bunch of sailors just skipping down the beach.
Fuck. Fuck. Where am I? Okay.
Let's build sandcastles.
So we lighted a fire, sat down, and enjoyed the repast which we had brought with us. We were startled by a sudden and violent trembling of the island, which at the same moment those left upon the ship set out an outcry bidding us to come on aboard for our lives. Come for your lives.
Come for your lives.
Since what we had taken for an island was nothing but the back of a sleeping whale. Those who were nearest to the boat threw themselves into it. Others sprang into the sea. But before I could save myself, the whale plunged suddenly into the depths of the ocean, leaving me clinging to a piece of wood which we had brought to make our fire. Meanwhile, a breeze had sprung up, and in the confusion that ensued, on board our vessel is in hoisting the sails and taking up those who were in the boat and clinging to its sides, no one missed me.
And they just bounced. Bye.
And I
See ya.
was left at the mercy of the waves.
Yeah. They didn't even realize I was gone, but that guy just said deuces as they rolled away.
It's fucked.
Yeah. Quick, get out of here. Sinbad's narrating his whole life again.
All that day I floated up and down, now beaten this way and that. And when night fell, I despaired for my life. But, weary and spent as I was, I clung to my frail support, and great was my joy when the morning light showed me that I have drifted against an island.
It's another whale, man. Don't trust it. They're all whales. They're all
Right.
whales.
I think I would, seriously think that was
Yeah,
the
I would
issue.
be paranoid from then on out.
This isn't real.
It's not real, man. It's a whale. It's not a whale. You're on a continent. It's a fucking whale, man.
For real. The cliffs were high and steep, but luckily for me, some tree roots protruded in place.
Not as high as I am. Yeah.
And by the aid I climbed up at last, and stretched myself upon a turf at the top, where I lay, more dead than alive, till the sun was high in the heavens. By that time I was very hungry, but after some searching I came upon some edible herbs and a spring of clear water. After I refreshed myself, I set out to explore the island. Presently I reached a great plain where a grazing horse was tethered.
Nay.
And as I stood looking at it, I heard voices talking apparently underground. And in a moment a man appeared who asked me how I came upon the island.
Howdy.
I told him of my adventures, and in return I was told that he was one of the grooms of Mirage, the king of the island, and each year they came to feed their master's horses in this plain. He took me to a cave where his companions were assembled, and when I had eaten the food they had set before me, they bade me to think myself fortunate to have come upon them when I did.
You're so fortunate.
Since
You
they
don't
were
even know how fortunate you are.
for real.
For real.
Since they were going back to their masters on the morrow, and without their aid I could certainly never have found my way to the inhabited part of the island.
Is this a Trader Joe's? This is a 5-star hotel.
Early the next morning we accordingly set out, and when we reached the capital I was graciously received by the king, to whom I related my adventures, upon which he ordered that I should be well cared for and provided with such things as I needed. Being a merchant, I sought out many men of my own profession, and particularly those who came from foreign countries, as I hoped that in this way.
I went on Craigslist and went sailor looking for sailor.
Fuck, you got me. That was pretty good. As I hoped in this way to hear news from Baghdad, and to find out some means of returning thither. For the capital was situated upon the seashore and visited by vessels from all parts of the world. And in the meantime I heard many curious things, and answered many questions concerning my own country, for I talked willingly with all those who came to me. Also, to waste away the time of waiting, I explored the little island named Cassel, which belongs to King Mirage, and which was supposedly to be inhabited by the spirit named Degel. Indeed, the sailors assured me that often at night the playing of thimbles could be heard upon it.
Yeah, playing them thimbles. Ting, 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 thimble jam.
However, I saw nothing strange upon my voyage, save some fish that were a full 200 cubics long.
Jesus.
That's what he said.
I saw nothing special except for a fish the size of 2 school buses.
but were fortunately more in dread of us than we were of them, and fled from us.
Set off my Whale Island PTSD.
If we did but strike it with a board to frighten them. Other fishes there were only about a cubit long, which had heads like owls.
Owl. Jesus. Nothing strange.
One day after my return, as I went down to the quarry, I saw a ship which had just cast anchor and was discharging her cargo, while the merchants to whom it belonged to were busily directing the removal of it to their warehouse. Wow. Drawing nearer, I noticed that my own name was marked upon some of the packages, and after having clearly examined them, I felt that they were for sure those which I had put on board our ship at Balsora. I then recognized the captain of the vessel, but as I was certain that he believed me to be dead, I went up to him and asked who owned the packages that I was looking at. The captain says,
There was on board my ship a merchant of Baghdad named Sinbad. One day he and several of me other crew members landed upon what we thought was an island. They was running around playing grab ass and building sandcastles. But it was a really enormous whale floating there asleep on them waves. No sooner had it felt the heat of the fire than it plunged into the depths of the sea. Several of the crew who were upon it perished in the waters. Among them was this unlucky Sinbad. This merchandise is his, but I have resolved to dispose of it for the benefit of its family, if I should ever have the chance to meet with him.
oh, so you're just going to pawn all this shit,
I
and then
basically-
maybe if you don't see
If
him.
I don't see the family, I may gamble it away. I do
What
have
if
a
one
bit
of
of a
those is a
gambling
family
problem.
heirloom, bitch? Dick.
I do have a drug problem too, so it might go to that. Arr.
So Sinbad replies, Captain, I am that Sinbad whom you believe to be dead, and these are my possessions. When the captain heard these words, he cried out in amazement.
Lack-a-day, what is this world coming to? And these days there's not an honest man to be met with. Did I not see Sinbad drowned with me own eyes? And now you have the audacity to tell me that you're him? Ha! I should have taken you to be just a man, and yet for the sake of obtaining that which does not belong to you. You are ready to invent this horrible falsehood ye are. Arr.
So Sinbad says, Have patience and do me the favor to hear my story. The captain replies,
Speak then, you have my attention. Arr. Starting to sound like a bit of a Canadian pirate, eh?
Sinbad says, So I told him of my escape and my fortunate meeting with the king's grooms and how kindly I had been received at the palace. Very soon I began to see that I had made some impression upon him, and after the arrival of some of the other merchants, who showed great joy at once more seeing me alive, he declared that he also recognized me. Throwing himself upon my neck, he then exclaimed,
Heavens be praised that ye have escaped from so great a danger. As to your goods, I pray you'll take them and dispose of 'em as you please, and forget that I was gonna sell 'em to go gambling and do me heroin.
Sinbad says, No problem, man.
Yeah, we cool.
I thanked him and praised his honesty, begging him to accept several bales of merchandise as a token of my gratitude.
Aye, this be the finest weed I've ever seen.
But he would take nothing. Of the choicest of my goods I prepared as a present for the King Mirage, who was at first amazed, having known that I had lost my all. However, when I explained to him how my bales had been miraculously restored to me, he graciously accepted my gifts and in return gave me many valuable things. I then took leave of him and, exchanging my merchandise for sandals and aloe woods,
He's totally selling weed.
camphor. He's got a whole list here. Hang on. He's got camphor, nutmegs, cloves, peppers, and ginger. I embarked upon the same vessel that had traded so successfully upon our homeward voyages that I arrived in Balsora with about 100,000 sequins. My family received me with as much joy as I have felt upon seeing them once more. I bought land, slaves, and built a great house in which I resolved to live
Ooh.
happily.
Ooh, ooh.
And in the enjoyment of all the pleasures of life, to forget my past sufferings. Here, Sinbad paused and commanded the He commanded the musicians to play again.
And I'm as free as a bird now.
While the feasting continued until evening. When the time came for the porter to depart, Sinbad gave him a purse containing 100 sequins, saying, "Take this, Sinbad, and go home. But tomorrow come again, and you shall hear more of my adventures." The porter retired quite overcome by so much generosity, and as you imagine that he was well received at home, where his wife and children thanked their lucky stars that he had found such a benefactor.
Finally, you're bringing home some money.
Real money. Yeah. The next day, Sinbad, dressed in his best, returned to the voyager's house and was received with open arms. As soon as all the guests had arrived, the banquet had begun as before, and when they had feasted long and merrily, Sinbad addressed to them and saying, "My friends, I beg that you will give me your attention while I relate the adventures of my second voyage, which you will find even more astonishing than the first."
Yeah. So that's we're set
Voyage
up.
1.
That's voyage number 1 of the many voyages of Sinbad. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Coming back with this little Saturday short. Tune in for more on Thursday. We're gonna, instead of making it just shorts, we're basically just gonna keep going till we're done with it. So tune in Thursday for some more voyages. Because there are a bunch.
Yep. We got 7 to get through. Yo.
7 whole voyages.
6 more to go.
6 more voyages to go, people. Yeah. Hope you enjoyed this. As always, like, subscribe, share it with your friends. Yell our name into something that echoes. Hi, mythology.
That sounds legal.
That sounds legal.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. But unless it's not your house.
Don't do that.
You finally said to do something legal, so I went and yelled it into a stranger's house. Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hope you folks enjoy us being back. We're happy to be back.
We got some references.
References.
Would be the fairy tales. That's with a Z at the end. Don't get that confused with that fucking dressing place.
Yeah.
And
what was the dude? Sir
Richard Burton.
Sir Richard Burton.
The Arabian Nights.
The Arabian Nights. Transcribed by Sir Richard Burton, who was for sure not the guy that wrote it.
All right, everyone. Y'all have a great one.
Have a good night.